I recently had a routine cervical screening, and I want to talk about that because sadly, I know some women are still not showing up for a checkup that takes minutes, no, seconds, and can literally save their lives. Quick bit of background for you. Anyone with a cervix between 25 and 64 will be invited by the NHS to be screened. Cervical screening, also known as a smear test, is not a test for cancer. It's a test to prevent cervical cancer. The test is actually checking for high-risk HPV, which is human papillomavirus. High-risk HPV can cause cells in the cervix to change, which could ultimately turn to cancer if left untreated. Underline could, not necessarily will, but could potentially, which is why we do the test. HPV is regarded a sexually transmitted infection and is commonly spread through vaginal and anal sex, but oral sex with someone that has the virus also poses a risk. In fact, any kind of skin-to-skin contact with a carrier could cause you to contract it. It usually doesn't show any symptoms, so people often don't realise that they actually have it. Another reason why you should be up on your sexual health. Also, someone that hasn't been sexually active for years could have it and not know. The only way to know for sure is to test. It's important to know there is no specific treatment for HPV, as your body usually rids itself of it in around 2 years. The only time action would need to be taken is if it displays with genital warts, for example, or it causes abnormal changes in the cervix, hence the cervical screening. So, I had the pleasure of getting me bits out for the nurse a week or so ago, and let me tell you, since the last time, the procedure has got even quicker. In my head, I had come to terms with the fact that not only was I going to bust it open and have a speculum lodged into my nether regions whilst a mini brush sweeped my cervix, but I already knew I wasn't wearing a skirt or a dress as is suggested for ease of access because I was going somewhere straight after, so I had accepted the fact that I was going to be naked from the waist down. But no, not only was the nurse full of bands, I mean, we laughed about how many fannies she had seen that morning. She was all like, no need to take your bottoms off, love. Just pull them and your panties down to your ankles, lie on the bed, ankles together, legs bent up, and no, you can keep your trainers on too. At this point, not gonna lie, mind was completely blown because I had come with this huge expectation of what was going to happen. But I realised I could literally keep everything on. I just had to allow access. I mean, it makes sense. Not being funny, but a nurse probably doesn't want to see you in all your birthing glory the same way you don't want to show her exactly what you're working with, or you'd rather not, you know? So, cuts both ways. So I did what she said and carried on chatting to avoid that grinding sensation of the brush. You know the one. I know not everyone's sensitive to it, but I definitely am. And within seconds, she was like, that's you done, hun. As she inserted the brush into the small plastic container filled with liquid ready to send off to the lab, I jumped up, got myself together, said my goodbyes, and that was me, off on my merry little way. Honestly, the whole appointment was about 7 minutes. A crucial life-changing test in under 10 minutes. So what about the results? Well, they tell you it can take up to 4 weeks for them to arrive by post, but mine came within the week. And thankfully, my result was negative, which essentially means my risk was very low and there was no need for any further tests to check for any possible abnormalities in the cervix. I will be invited back in the next 3 years, as per the guidelines in England that says every 3 years for people between 25 and 49, and 5 years for those between the age of 50 and 64. If my test had been positive, I would have been invited back in about a year to do a retest to see if the HPV had gone. If the HPV was still present after 3 tests or cell changes were detected, the next step would be a colposcopy, which is where a colposcopist takes a more thorough look at the cervix. I'm going to keep it 100 with you. Health anxiety is real. There's always going to be that little voice in the back of your head whenever you go for any kind of test screaming, what if? So how do you deal with that? I guess the key is to try and silence that voice by somehow talking to yourself and rationalising over the fact that these tests are designed to preserve your life. They're for your benefit. So if anything was to come up or come back as a result, then it's absolutely better that you deal with it early on. You literally have one body in this life. One body. You owe it to yourself to take care of it.